The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
This is News Talk.
Hello there, you're welcome along. So, good show for you this evening. Phil Mickelson won the US PGA Championship last night at Kiawah Island. He is now the oldest major winner in history. Lawrence Donegan joins us this hour on an extraordinary feat. Amazing scenes as well down the 18th. A less joyous weekend for Ronan O'Gara. La Rochelle beaten in the Heineken Champions Cup final at Twickenham. We will chat to Ronan after 8 on the show, followed by Darren O'Sullivan, who will talk us through Dublin Kerry yesterday. Plus, on the football show, once again, top 4 heartbreak for Leicester at the death. Pat Nevin on the final day of the Premier League season. Plus, Amber Barrett joins us, the Irish international, on her promotion-winning year at Cologne. Richie McCormack, evening.
Hey, Joe.
Adrian Barry, hello.
Evening, Joe. Richie.
53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Adrian Barry, kick us off. What caught you this weekend?
Well, Bob Dylan's 80th, I presume, is where we all want to begin. I know Richie McCormack will be biting on that one.
I've a couple of tunes lined up for tonight, Adrian. I'm on for Tom. So
what have we got?
Disappointed. I'm going to leave a surprise in your life. A couple of really good covers. I'll put it that way, and then some obvious Bob numbers themselves.
What do you mean covers? People covering Bob Dylan, or Bob Dylan covering others?
Yeah, Bob doesn't tend to cover others. So yeah.
Would you not just go and play the man himself?
I am. Yeah, I'm doing that as well. I'm keeping everybody happy. Yeah.
Well, I'll be tuned all the way through.
Class. That's one listener.
There's so much going on, isn't there? Maybe the golf, Joe. I mean, I know this is into your heartland, and I couldn't escape you today because I've been listening to your review on Golf Weekly with the lads a bit earlier on. But the golf was just tremendous last night. I did a bit of family stuff yesterday and wrapped it all up neatly at 1:45, just in time to get onto my couch for the Dublin Kerry game, and I pretty much didn't leave it for the guts of 12 hours. But it was a brilliant day. But the golf was brilliant last night. I know I'm asking for too much, but it would have been just if one of them could have just not been as profligate, is that the word, towards the end, and actually just managed to get to within one more of Phil and just give us that extra little needle down the end. It would have been interesting to see how he reacted, but it was just a great story. Like, I think I would have been slightly listening to Nathan at the pod earlier, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting his opinion here, but I think he was making the point about, like, he expected this to happen at some point. I was almost at the counter view that I thought, like, the more physical the game got, the better the younger players were getting, the less likely it was that somebody beyond the age of 46 or whatever it was that would actually end up winning one of these things. But given all of those factors, I think what he's done is, sure, it's incredible.
Incredible, yeah.
He gave a really interesting interview on Friday on Sky. He was asked about, he had a pretty decent round on Friday, you might remember, and they were asking him, how are you managing to cope at your age? They were being, more delicate about it than that. But he was saying that the physical side of the game he's actually fine with. It's the mental aspect. He finds he can not necessarily zone out, but the rigours of an 18-hole day in, day out for 4 days can kind of wear on a 51-year-old nearly brain. So he finds himself playing like 41 holes for a practice round just to keep himself zoned in and being able to concentrate for longer spells of time. And he's even into meditating as well. So the mental aspect of his game, he was saying, is absolutely massive and has played a huge part in what he did over the weekend.
Yeah, very noticeable breathing, Adrian, on the course. A lot of deliberate breathing, a lot of closing of the eyes, well, in so much as you can see behind the shades, but going into a certain zone, even to the point where when he holed the winning putt, I thought he certainly was delighted and everything, but it wasn't like fists in the air, blubbing on his brother's shoulder like Tiger at the Masters. It was almost more, I guess, kind of calm demeanour, which I guess was in keeping with his general play. But that was definitely part of it, as Richie was saying, the meditation aspect. And of course, the other thing with Phil is he is just a genius. Ultimately, players are aging better, and that is true, and equipment sort of helps. And so I think Phil was maybe always a candidate to do something special as he got older, but the one thing equipment can't do is help you around the greens when your nerves are frayed. And when he holed that bunker shot on the 5th for birdie on that par 3 5th, and the crowd go nuts, you kind of thought there might be a bit of magic in the air then, as just extraordinary. And if people didn't see the scenes on 18, I'm sure you have at this stage, a lot of people. Borderline out of control. I mean, just
I think out of control.
I think a little bit, yeah. I mean, you were kind of watching it going, oh God, this is great. But at the back of your mind, you're saying, oh, I'm not sure how great it is. And Koepka wasn't happy, actually. I think he thought it had got out of control. Mickelson was saying on Twitter today that when he was asked about the guy who kind of put his arm around him, and he was saying, I elbowed him out of the way in the ribs, kind of cracking a joke about it. But it was an unbelievable scene.
I listened to you on Golf Week later on. I had the exact same experience on my couch last night where my wife was like, "This looks as if it's a bit out of control," and I was like, "No, no, that's absolutely fine." And then like a couple of minutes later, no, actually, you're right, that was wild. But and you wonder how, like, the sort of impact that might have had on somebody a bit younger, Joe. You know what I mean? Like it was incredible. Like, it really was. Like, that the crowd had lost the plot at that point. They'd turned into a mob, like they had, in so much as a crowd of golf fans can turn into a mob. That was pretty much, I think, as close as it gets. Like, they were kind of egging each other on, and the security couldn't hold them back. But you wonder with a younger player who gets manhandled effectively, how they might have responded. But yeah, he was so calm, and like, even when he got into bother, even on the Saturday when he got into bother, and he, like, at one point could have been a big bother. Like, there was a point where he could have been 6 shots clear, and in no time it was back to 2 or 3 shots, and you just wonder with a player of like less experience or whatever how they respond to that. But like, the old man stuff has just been so interesting with Harrington afterwards, and there was a brilliant article with him on one of the sites over the weekend. I can't remember which one. They were effectively saying, don't worry about talking to Phil about trying to get any insight into him, because he's not going to tell you at the minute, but listen to this guy over here. And Harrington just pouring forth with all the insights, and even him afterwards, Joe, he like, so Mickelson's been away, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure I am on some of this, but to like fine-tune his physique and his mentality, and like you're saying with the meditation, and he said himself he's done a huge amount of work afterwards, right? And how many shots was he ahead of Harrington in the end?
Oh, he was 6. I think Harrington finished up on 2, so 4 shots in the end. I mean, the Harrington Lowry double act was this lovely subplot for us all kind of watching here. Yeah, it was 4 shots ahead of Harrington and Lowry.
So the point being, and like, look at Padraig Harrington is obviously somebody who just works on his game constantly, and that's just what he does. Whereas Mickelson went and spent this like period of time fine-tuning himself to get himself in this zone, to put himself in a position to win a regular event or a major event. Whereas Harrington just kind of sauntered in, doing what he does every other week anyway, and bloody well, like, gave it a right run at winning the thing.
He did great.
Which was incredible.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh no, Mickelson, like, he's transformed his body. He's in better shape now than he was in his 30s for sure. And I think about a decade ago, you kind of started to get worried about him because he was diagnosed with arthritis, and it seemed to be really bad for a time in his hands. And arthritis in the hands as a golfer, when you're a Phil Mickelson type golfer, is not good. He seems to have gotten top of that now. He was talking about, I mean, he puts it down weirdly to the amount of coffee he drinks. For some reason, all the caffeine helps with it. And then equally, he was talking about how he's got the inflammation down in his body. But I think caffeine brings inflammation up, so I'm not quite sure how they tally, but somehow they do. And he was saying he fasts for 36 hours a day to keep his weight under control, all of this stuff. So yeah, he's put an unbelievable amount of work in. So look, 50 and 11 months, he has broken the record, oldest major winner, and the field has never been more deep. So extraordinary achievement. We'll talk to Lawrence Donegan about that this hour.
Do you think that there's a chance that will be broken, or do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it might be broken by him. Is that what do you think?
I think he could break it. Yeah, I think he could break it at a British Open again, or a venue like this where it's not just about bombing it. And he bombed it plenty off the tee. Like, he is so long off the tee now as well. But course like this, a British Open, I think, like, Phil could pop up in 4 or 5 years, because like the last couple of years he's been almost a parody of himself. He's like, been catching the eye for kind of off course stuff more than on course. But the way Tom Watson popped up at an Open at 59 at Turnberry in 09 and was so close, and Stuart Sink swooped in. I think Mickelson is a great candidate to do that again at some stage in the next couple of years, and I think Harrington's another good candidate to do that at an Open in particular, or a venue like this weekend. I really wouldn't rule out Harrington. So I think it will be broken just because people are aging better, but it's still a freak occurrence. It's still unbelievable. So we'll talk to Lawrence Donegan about that this hour. Ronan O'Gara at 8, obviously big disappointment for him and La Rochelle. I'll get to some of your texts in a moment on everything from Phil to Bob Dylan. The Newsround on Off the Ball and News Talk is with thanks to Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. Richie, you're starting with live football here at home this evening.
Indeed, I am. Tonight's action in the SSE Electricity Premier Division got underway with a pair of 5:45 starts. At Dalymount Park, it's Bohemians 4, Dundalk 0. Georgie Kelly has scored a perfect hat-trick for Bows this evening. Right foot, left foot and header. Bows as well down to 10 men. Tonight's other scorer, Tyreek Wilson, sent off early in the second half, but 4-0. They lead Dundalk, who of course only beat Shamrock Rovers on Friday night. And it's currently Derry City 1, St Pat's 1 at the Ryan McBride. Brandywell, Lee Desmond gave Pats the lead there. Ronan Boyce, with his third goal in 4 games, has levelled for Rory Higgins' side. Pick of tonight's matches sees the top 2 meet at Tallaght Stadium, having seen their 33-game unbeaten streak ended on Friday night. Shamrock Rovers entertained second place Sligo from 7:45. At the same time, informed Drogheda United host Longford Town, and Waterford play host to Finn Harps.
Kieran and Maynooth has picked up Richie, wants to check something. Tell Richie Bob's covered numerous artists, has a number of cover albums. He even has not one but 2 albums of Frank Sinatra covers.
That's true, actually. He put out a Sinatra one recently, but his best album by far is his Christmas record.
Oh, yeah.
I think Phil's low-key reaction, says Stephen, was more down to the fact he was worried the fans were going to charge the green, so he had half an eye on having some sweaty lump jump on him. Yeah, maybe. Maybe he felt the crowd were brewing for a Storm the Green Ryder Cup type moment and didn't want to go nuts. That's a theory for sure. Lads, I'm fed up of this sport is nothing without the fans nonsense. I think golf is worse for having the fans at it. The PGA certainly was over the weekend, and I think what's worse was Sky refusing to comment on it, says an anonymous texter. I presume you're not a fan of the mashed potato screams. The most surprising thing of the week, says Niall, was that Mickelson kept lashing drives down the stretch when there was so much trouble around. I still can't figure out if he was lucky and avoided a couple of wild ones, or if he somehow figured out how to belt straight drives. Well, that was the most remarkable thing of the whole week, especially on Saturday. Phil Mickelson driving the ball in the middle of the fairway was breaking the habit of a lifetime. Absolutely incredible. I don't know when that started or how long that'll last, but it was, as I said, breaking the habit of a lifetime. Stephen Kenny has named a squad, Richie, for the 2 friendlies in the summer. Lots of new faces.
Yeah, 4 of them to be exact. He says Andrew Omababadeli's call-up to the Republic of Ireland squad has come ahead of schedule. The 18-year-old Norwich defender is one of 4 uncapped players named in Kenny's squad of 27 for next month's friendlies with Andorra and Hungary. Also called up today were St Mirren's Jamie McGrath, Rotherham winger Chidozie Albenia, and Shamrock Rovers midfielder Danny Mandrew. The likes of Enda Stevens, Alan Brown and James McCarthy are not included. They've been given time off by the manager, and he ran through the merits today of each one of his new kids.
We've radically obviously changed things. We've brought 15 players in before this camp, even 15 new players into the international team in a 6-month period, and we've capped 13, well, not including Aaron Connolly, who was capped once already, but including Ireland, probably 13 players into, made a competitive international debut in that period, and which is quite radical, and some might feel it's too much change too quickly, and I understand that viewpoint, but in my opinion that is necessary, because we've had absolutely no development for about 8 or 9 years, where we've one player through in 9 years and nobody really looking at that, and then a huge demographic between players 29 and 30 and 20 and very little in between. And I think we have a bigger vision for what we want to achieve going forward. I think by integrating a lot of these players in, not all of them will become top class international players, but a number of them will. We've got a lot of talent and we want to see it develop. We want to give it the opportunity to develop, and we want to see the team thrive, and that's certainly what we want. We have a clear idea how we want to do that.
Pretty interesting, Adrian.
Yeah, and he's communicated it all there very eloquently as well. And I hadn't appreciated that there was so few players capped. And I would certainly be in the camp that thinks that that's too many on the one hand, right? But I suppose on the other hand, when you think that we're not getting the results anyway, then why the hell would you not just go ahead and look at as many players as you can and try and develop the thing forward? I'm finding it very difficult to tune into a conversation about the Republic of Ireland after such an amazing weekend of great news story. We all hope that things start to come right for them very shortly, but it's you open that drawer and it doesn't look pretty inside. Yeah,
Dan McDonald will be on the football show tomorrow evening. We might tease out that whole situation. You're bringing us some Padraig Harrington next, Richie.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, Phil Mickelson last night becoming the oldest winner ever of a major tournament. 3 weeks shy of his 51st birthday, he was a 2-shot winner at Kiowa Island in the PGA Championship. Mickelson's final round of 73 saw him end the week on 6 under par with Louis Westhuizen, and Brooks Koepka tied for second on 4 under. Shane Lowry and Padraig Harrington both shot rounds of 69, playing together last night, which was enough to see them tie for 4th. Harrington was asked afterwards about Lowry's prospects of making September's European Ryder Cup squad at Whistling Straits.
Look, Shane is as we know, is a big-time player and likes playing big golf courses on the big occasion. Why am I keep saying big about Shane? Yes, he seems to, he likes the wind. There's a quality about him. He wouldn't stand in a tee box and fear anybody. So Shane, just like everybody else who's not in the team, either if they don't necessarily, nobody has to make it into the team. As I said, there's 9 guys there at the moment, but if you want to get a pick, you're going to have to impress, because there's plenty of guys. I seem to have an abundance of players in that running for those 3 picks. There's probably you got to think 6-7 players who could be in the running, and you just got to impress. So he did a good job today. He certainly did himself no harm. And we'll see how the next couple of months go.
Yeah, and on a similar golf course to Whistling Straits as well, he certainly did do himself no harm, and he's up pretty close now to the almost playing himself onto the team, but not quite area of the bubble. Shane Lowry, he'll probably need a couple of more good results, obviously, but that's a tricky dynamic. That's just. Is he helped, Joe? Do you think? Is he helped? No, I'm not sure he is. I'm not sure he is helped, because I think Harrington will be loath to be accused of picking his mate. I really do. I think that's a tricky dynamic. So, yeah.
And like when they're joshing around the course yesterday and stuff, it's like, you just know the context.
Yeah. And Peter Lowry has said to us on Golf Weekly, like, he does not think Harrington would have any qualms about not picking Lowry if he didn't think it was the right thing to do. But it's a really difficult position potentially. I suspect Harrington is seriously hoping Lowry goes on a great run of form now and either plays himself onto the team or is just a massively justifiable pick. Big couple of weeks. Shane Lowry's desperate to get in the Ryder Cup, obviously.
If Harrington wasn't the captain, like, Lowry is in decent enough form, like you'd be considering him strongly for a wildcard pick anyway, and by everything in his makeup you think he'll be a Poulter type. Like Harrington himself said there, he won't fear anybody on the tee. He'd nearly raise his game to be up against the bigger players. Very tricky.
Yeah, very tricky. He's had 2 very good majors thus far in the year, Shane Lowry, and if he get that putter gets warm, he said to us a couple of weeks ago, everything else is in good shape. So hopefully he takes that very awkward decision out of Harrington's hands. Richie, I am not on top of this story. I know you're bringing it to us next, this Wexford versus Clare thing. So can you explain this to me like I'm coming to this fresh, because I am. Okay,
so last week, you'll remember Wexford played Clare in the Allianz Hurling League. There were 2 members of the Wexford panel tested positive for COVID-19. Then afterwards, a couple of players from the Clare panel were deemed to be close contacts of those that tested positive with Wexford. Eventually, the Wexford-Kilkenny game on Sunday was called off, but Clare's game with Laois did go ahead. And it all centres this next story around comments made by the Clare hurling manager Brian Lohan after that game, because Wexford have called for Clare hurling manager Brian Lohan to correct statements he made about the Model County panel. Lohan alleged yesterday, after that win over Laois, that Wexford players who tested positive for COVID-19 had nominated Clare players as close contacts. Lohan was speaking after Clare's win over Laois, while Wexford's game, as I mentioned, with Kilkenny was called off as a precaution. Wexford chairman Micheál Martin was speaking with South East Radio this morning. He's described Lohan's suggestion of players nominating close contacts as outrageous.
I'm not sure what is going on in relation to those comments, Alan, other than to say that they are completely and factually inaccurate and incorrect. I'm very disappointed to have to address them this morning. I would think that they're ill-informed and, quite frankly, I think they're outrageous comments by Brian Lohan yesterday, in that I think it has been made clear at all times, both by HSC Midwest to Clare, as far as I'm aware, and directly via myself to my counterpart in Clare, that at no time did Wexford GAA or players of Wexford GAA nominate close contacts. That simply doesn't happen, Alan. The only people that decide whether you're a close contact or not is public health and the HSE. So, as I say, I'm disappointed to have to address this morning, and the insinuation that our players nominated is completely inaccurate.
Right. Someone's got the wrong end of the stick there then, Adrian.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that jumps to mind is the Brian Lowe and Davy Fitz situation, and the obviously seemingly irreparable relationship that now exists between them. But the idea of nominating somebody as a close contact is totally alien to me. Not something I've heard of, not being an expert in the area clearly, but not something I've heard of before.
Yeah.
The whole thing just seems beyond bizarre. Like, I mean, is the insinuation that they nominated Clare players on the basis that then it would impact the outcome of how the fixture was awarded or replayed, or I don't know.
It's a weird one because it's the Wexford game that was the most in peril, and ultimately that was the one that was called off the game with Kilkenny.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there was any suggestion. It was Friday when the two members of the Clare panel were stood down, but there was no suggestion that at that point, that there was any COVID within the camp, nor would their game at Laois be called off. So, if there was a bit of gamesmanship in trying to make fixtures go one way or the other, like it's definitely fallen against Wexford with all of this, because you can't imagine that would be rearranged. So I'm baffled as to what the actual kernel of all this is.
Yeah.
But whether or not there was mixing outside of the match day situation between players or what, we don't know. But it's very odd, and somebody needs to provide further details before we can go any further with it, I guess.
Well, I guess Brian Lowe will be asked about it now, that this has been...
Again.
The point has been made by Micheál Martin, the Wexford chairman, that this absolutely didn't happen. So Brian Lowe's got his information from somewhere. So it's a real he said kind of a situation. Just before we wrap up on the news round, Rich, we might just mention Sergio Ramos.
Before we go any further, it's 4-0 Bows, and both teams down to 10 men. Cameron Dunnigan's been sent off for Dundalk, and Derry City have taken the lead through Joe Thompson at home to St. Pat's 2-1 now. And Dundalk have actually pulled back in the past few moments. Greg Sloggett too. But as you mentioned there, Sergio Ramos, a notable absentee from Spain's squad for Euro 2020. Luis Enrique today only named 24 men out of a possible 26, saying he didn't want to bring players that wouldn't be used. Manchester City pair Eric Garcia and Aymeric Laporte get the nod ahead of Ramos. French-born Laporte gained Spanish citizenship only this month, qualifying through the residency rules there.
Okay, very good, fellas. We are done for this evening. Adrian, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Richie, thanks very much.
Georgie Kelly for Ireland.
We have Ronan O'Gara at 8 o'clock. We have Darren O'Sullivan 8:40. Pat Nevin, Amber Barrett on the football show. Up next, Lawrence Donegan will give us his thoughts on the USPGA at Kiawah.
The news round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Hi, David Keeling here. At Keeling's, we like to work in harmony with nature, which includes looking after our little friends, the bees. Our Keeling's Great Rewilding project aims to help reverse the declining population of bees and other friendly pollinators, and we'd love you to join